Hello, one and all, and welcome to the latest episode of the Addicted to Cars podcast with me, Scott Newman, and my friend Stephen Otley. How are you, Stephen?
I'm good, mate. Ready to talk cars as always.
Perfect. Well, we're going to talk a lot of cars today. We're going to talk price cuts. We're going to talk Kia EV4. We're going to talk single clutch gearboxes. We're going to a little surprise for you in the classifieds, and then we're going to do a lot of motorsport because it was a big. It's going to be a big couple of weeks of motorsport. We've just had the N24, we had NASCAR, and then next week we've got a little club race called the Indy 500. So, strap in.
Let's go.
But we'll open with some news. And what's kind of been dominating news recently is that everybody's been getting the hatchet out to their prices. If you haven't been following the news, I'll give you some of it, and then we can get Stephen's take. So, the Ford Ranger Hybrid just came out of the 2026. It's been renamed from the PHEV to the Hybrid. It now starts from $59,000 drive away instead of $71,990 plus on-road costs. Essentially, we've taken about 10, 12, 13 grand out of that. Subaru has announced that the Trail Seeker is down $4,000 and it hasn't even launched yet.
That's always a good one.
And the Solterra is down another $2,000 after being down another $7,000. Kia Tasman has been got new drive away pricing. We're looking at between $10,000 and $13,000 off. The headline, though, this is a good one. The updated Lexus RZ, which is kind of the electric RX, their big SUV, had $42,000 taken off the RRP.
It's a little bit of a haircut.
So, what's going on, Stephen?
Well, there's a relatively common theme there. The Tasman's a bit of an outlier because I think it's more based on some pretty high expectations and some confident expectations that haven't been met. But the rest of them have some form of electrification.
Yep.
We are living in the age of the new vehicle efficiency scheme, which is the government's attempt to get us cleaner, more fuel-efficient vehicles. And, I think, part of it is you've got to get these things to sell. There's a bit more demand. There's, as we've discussed, there's a bit more demand for electric cars at the moment because of high petrol prices. So, if you're going to bite the bullet and take the hit on the price, you may as well do it when there's a bit more demand out there. And they need to sell these cars. I mean, Ford especially need to sell, if they don't sell electrified vehicles, they're going to get stung on their, diesel-powered Rangers and their V8 petrol-powered Mustangs. Which is pretty much the only other things they sell other than Transit.
So, I'm going to get your take about this because essentially, so a Ford Ranger Hybrid Wild Track is now $70,000 drive away. The Ford Ranger Wild Track V6 diesel, which is obviously the ICE version, is 75 grand essentially, plus on roads. It's about 81,000 drive away, depending on your state. So, do you think people will move en masse to the hybrid? Because the hybrid actually has more kit too. It's got more kit. It's about $11,000 cheaper. You don't have the same fuel costs if you run it, as a PHEV. I know it doesn't have a huge EV range, but you can still cut it there.
No, yeah.
So, do you think people will move en masse, or people will still be addicted to diesel?
En masse, no. I don't see a huge shift. I think there probably will be some people that maybe have looked at the hybrid and sort of said, yeah, maybe in theory that kind of works, but I'm not going to spend a premium on it, right? Because you're diminishing the purpose of buying it in the first place if there's a huge price premium. So, I don't know necessarily. Yeah, like I say, I'd be surprised if there was a significant amount of customers.
Which is strange because on paper now, why would you buy the diesel? It's a lot more expensive, and the PHEV can still do 3.5 ton towing, etc., etc. There's no real drawback. But
this will be the test for Ford because, I've driven both the Shark and the BYD Shark 6, which is obviously going really well as a plug-in hybrid, and the Ranger. I was actually able to work out, pretty accurately how many Ranger hybrids Ford was selling in the first few months it went on sale, when there was a little hype around it, the push, all that, marketing, and it was not a lot. I mean, you're talking a few hundred. And so by my best guesstimate. So, so I just think there was a lot of talk early on that it was not a particularly good hybrid in the sense that the BYD is a superior hybrid.
Yep.
If your goal is to save fuel, the BYD is better, right?
Yes.
But if you need a ute, where Ford they compromised on the hybridness to make it a good ute. And so it's still, like you say, it still does all the ute things like payload and towing that ute buyers need. So yeah, I think, look, my advice to people would be, if you're looking to buy a new Ranger, don't just default and go, oh, I'll get the diesel. Because, like I would take a long, hard look at how you use your ute. Like, particularly, I mean, yeah, if you're towing 3.5 ton all the time and you're doing long distance trips, you probably should still spend the extra and get the diesel.
Yeah, the
right?
diesel will do that easier.
But if you're not towing all the time, if you and you're going to tow occasionally, or you just want to have the ability to tow, or you're only putting smaller payloads in, you really seriously should be considering the hybrid because it's not a bad car.
Well, it's interesting that the base one now is now an XL, and typically XL in Rangerland means Boggo stripped out, council fleet special, right? But they've actually, and it's still got halogen headlights, which is really weird. But they've put the full 12.4-inch digital dash in it, which you couldn't even get in the Wild Track, I don't think, until very, very recently. And the full 12-inch touchscreen. So they've actually put a fair bit of kit in this thing. And that starts at $59,000 drive away. So it's a pretty compelling. I haven't driven one yet, but it's a pretty, and it wasn't really chomping at the bit too, because it was a bit of a niche out there offering. But now it's a really compelling value proposition. So I think it'll be very interesting to see, does it get 5, 20, 30% share? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting. The biggest problem for them, I think, is going to be BYD's about to expand the Shark 6 lineup, right? They're in the process of launching a performance variant that's going to sit above it, a bit more premium, and they're going to do a cab chassis, right? So that whole segment of the market that BYD were not playing in, they're now going to play in. So, maybe part of it is a reaction to that. But like you say, I mean, I don't think they're alone. I don't think, like you said, Subaru's cut prices, Lexus cut prices. It's always.
And these are just the official price cuts, not necessarily the ones you can get if you go and talk to the dealer and say, please buy my car.
Yeah. Particularly when you look at some of these cars that have been sitting there. There's been electric cars, multiple, electric models where they're like trying to get rid of MY23 cars, MY24, and like in the middle of 2026. It's not good,
The other question this poses though is that, I mean, especially with the stuff like the Lexus, and I will reach out and try and talk to people about this and maybe give an update next week, is that who got your numbers wrong? Like, why weren't you just offering it as this to begin with? I mean, especially with the Ranger, I mentioned it to someone and they said, well, I think they wanted to make money on it. So, which I understand, but 10 grand margin on zero sales is zero.
Yeah.
So it's just it'd be interesting to have an insight, and not having worked at a manufacturer, I don't have a huge insight in how that stuff works. I can see how you want margin on a car, but clearly presumably they're not losing money on them now. They're not loss leaders. So they were asking, so maybe they went back to the factory and said, can we sharpen your pencils? I don't know. Well, I'll have to have an update on that. But what do you think about to that? If you can take that much out of the car, just sell it like that to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's obviously that perspective that, like, why wasn't it? We've seen this a lot in recent years, right? Yep. The pre-on-sale adjustment. And that's, I think a lot of it is some brands being caught out by just how, to be blunt, how cheap some of these Chinese electric vehicles are. Yep. They come in and they've undercut them. I think, the government efficiency standard is causing it. And the other bottom line is, we sell just over 1 million cars. There's nearly 70 brands all fighting for that, 1.1, 1.2 million sales. It's hyper competitive. You can't afford to be overpriced. You can't afford to be, miss the mark, even by $5,000, because there'll be other 2 or 3 other rivals ready to, undercut you and steal your sales. So, I think it's certainly just, there's a combination of factors to this that are making it, a good time to buy, particularly an electric car. If you've been on the fence about an electric car, now is the time to go and get one.
Well, hold that thought for later. But for now, speaking of electric cars, you've been driving a Kia EV4, which I'll understand if people don't know necessarily what that is. Why don't you explain what it is and then what your thoughts were about it?
Yeah, so I don't know what it is. It's weird.
Okay.
That's, I mean, no. So it's there on paper. Officially,
It's a sedan, isn't it?
it is
Officially?
officially it is Kia's mid-size sedan. Think of it electric mid-size sedan.
Yep.
Think of it as Kia's version of the Hyundai Ioniq 6, which is to say, it's a mid-size electric car that looks enormously weird.
Yep.
Right? They are both. It's funny. I mean, we talk about it. What we're just saying, like Hyundai are holding off on bringing back the Ioniq 6 mainstream. We've got the Ioniq 6N, but they haven't talked about the rest of them because they don't sell. And so I don't think Kia has high sales hopes for this car. But what it offers, it looks weird because it is super aerodynamic. It is what happens when you design a mainstream. I mean, you can sort of, if you sort of squint and look at it from a distance, you kind of, the silhouette is kind of those sort of teardrop, solar challenge kind of cars that you see university students build. Like,
Designed in a wind tunnel.
yeah, it is designed in a wind tunnel. It's designed for maximum efficiency, and guess what? It works. The claimed range with the bigger battery, the claimed range is over 600 kilometers, which is massive. I mean, to be honest, it's almost overkill. Like, realistically, look, let's be candid. Those claimed ranges are the same as claimed fuel economy. They're really hard to achieve in the real world, right? It's a lab test, but it gives you a like for like comparison, and that's significantly above what you'll get with, a lot of them, particularly SUVs, because obviously an SUV is taller, less aerodynamic.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's like
know,
that's the benefit of those sort of cars. They might have both cars have claimed 600k ranges, but especially for long distances or at higher speeds, 100, 110, the EV4 is going to be much, much, much better because obviously drag just kills EVs in terms of efficiency.
Like, even if you can get 500 Ks out of the battery, right, which is, obviously way less than what they're saying, which, I don't think I think that's probably pessimistic. You should get more. But if you go freeway, if you sit on 110, sit into Melbourne, in theory, you could do it on one charge.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, it should be doable on a single charge. So, the whole notion of range anxiety and stuff is becoming a little bit tiresome. Like, I don't think there's that, the reality is, if you are driving, Sydney to Melbourne, Sydney to Brisbane, whatever, Melbourne to Adelaide, like, if you are doing those trips on a regular basis, no, you shouldn't be buying an electric car. But if you're looking for an electric car around the city, look, honestly, EV4, it's also a little bit longer. Like I said, it's a mid-size sedan. It's got great space. It kind of fills that role of... It's only fractionally shorter. The wheelbase, I looked it up. The wheelbase is 9 millimeters shorter than the last Holden Commodore ZB, which was considered a large car. So, like, it's not far away from the kind of space you'd expected. It's I wouldn't say it's Calais levels of space, but it's it's Commodore kind of space level. I mean, it's a good family sedan. If you're not an SUV person, or you want something that's comfortable, not an SUV, you should, in theory, depending on how much you drive, you should charge it once a week. Realistically, maybe if you're doing a bit of driving, like I did. I drove it for a week and didn't put it on charge. And I did a fair bit of, I did sort of an above average amount of driving for myself. So yeah, I think it's impressive, and it's sort of So I guess at the end of the day, it's that question of, do you want the efficiency or do you want to not have people stare at you?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, we've had this argument for a while now with the SUVs. It's like SUVs they're less efficient, they're less space efficient, but yeah, I don't think the EV4 will be a big seller. But I'm told it drives very well. Does it drive well?
Yeah, it drives alright.
Okay.
Like it's,
Right.
it drives. It's good. Yeah, it's not gonna blow your doors off, but it's perfectly good car. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I drove the GT line, high spec, loaded with goodies. It's $65,000 basically, plus on-road. So it's not cheap, but again, it's an electric car. Yeah. They probably would be. You can get one for $49,990. the base model car, which has a shorter range, but still, 450 odd Ks. So, yeah, I mean, it's just that thing. If you're sedan, if you're one of those sort of few remaining sedan people in the world, then and you want an electric option, it's certainly something you should consider.
Okay. Well, you've spoken about new tech. I'm going to speak about old tech.
Oh, good.
Because I want to talk about single clutch gearboxes, which is for those who don't understand or don't remember.
Yes,
these used to be
dark
everywhere.
times.
They were the. I've got an F1 gearbox in my car.
Yeah, Selly Speed, the Alfa Romeo Selly Speed.
Yeah, exactly. They had a million different names. They had SMG. They had R-Tronic or S-Tronic. I can't remember, but Cambio Corsa. They had a million different names. F1 Shift.
Yeah,
and they were pilloried in the moment, and they are a lot to this day. You see a lot of cars now getting manual converted. Murcielagos, Gallardos, F430s, 599s, etc., etc. M3s, of course. I was just speaking to someone last week who's having his M3 CSL manual converted, which is pretty tasty. Do you have many memories of these gearboxes from your road testing time?
Yes, I have a few. I still remember driving a bunch of them. Driving in like a Fiat Punto. Yeah, I remember I reviewed that Punto, and I was working for a big newspaper at the time, and I literally got a letter from someone saying, "I wish I'd read your review before I bought one of these single speed trends," because I was pretty frank in my assessment of the gearbox. Yep. And they said, "I wish I'd read your review before because I hate this car."
Yeah.
Because I think the simplest term for people who've never experienced it, they're a lot like, I remember, it doesn't really matter what car. If you're talking Fiat Punto, I remember I drove it in an Audi R8 Spider. Basically, it doesn't matter how good you are at driving, you will look like a learner who's just figured out how to use a clutch. That's basically what it's like. The worst of them were you could feel it sort of engage the clutch, select the gear, and then kind of come off the clutch a little bit awkwardly. That's what they felt. They felt like a learner driver, to me anyway. I could not stand them.
Okay, having said that, I'm going to mount a defense for this gearbox.
Oh, here we go.
I was having, I grew up reading about all these cars when this technology came in, like the mid-2000s and stuff like that. I was voracious in reading magazines. We've talked about that before. And so then I took that on board. I was like, all these gearboxes are crap. But by the time I started as a motoring journalist, they were pretty much gone. It was pretty much the dual clutch era, 2011. Yes. However, I'll do a bit of video work for a luxury car dealer down here in Melbourne, Lawbeck Luxury Cars, and through that I've been lucky enough to drive quite a few of these cars with this gearbox. Aston V12 Vantage S, Maserati MC Corsa. Recently, last week I drove Lamborghini Gallardo Performante, which was the drop-top Superleggera. Ferrari 430 Scuderia 16M. And
this is while I'm driving an electric Kia. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah, good.
I gotta go look at my life choices.
If it helps, I get to drive them for 10 kilometres, if that. Yeah. That's okay. They're actually not bad. They're not bad. And I realise I'm driving the higher end ones, and I'm going to say, if you're buying a Fiat Punto or something like that with a single clutch gearbox, seller speed, avoid. Again, I've driven the M3 CSL. That was quite an early one. We're talking 2004, 2003.
Yeah, and even it was a little bit. It was the CSL had a better version that was in the standard E46 M3.
Yeah, and that was okay, but I think that still hurt the car.
Oh, big time.
These later ones, are they as good as a manual? No. And you can make the case of the way you have to drive these things is drive them like a manual.
Yeah.
If you drive them like an auto, they are dreadful. Like you say, they're slurry and they're jerky and you look like Jenny the learner. Sorry, Jenny, whoever Jenny. I don't know why Jenny became the learner everyone talked about, but there she is. But if, like this Lambo, for instance, right? If you lifted on the throttle, even really quickly, like even in a sequential gearbox, the shifts are really crisp. And downshifts, they always got pretty right, okay? Like, you press the pedal, it throttle blips, and it does a good job. Especially the Aston one was really good at that. So, I want to say this to mount a defense of them. partly because I see now, especially later cars, like Ferrari 599, for instance, the 430s, would I buy one? No questions asked. No, you'd probably go the manual. But given the manuals are now $250,000 more expensive, I'm just going to say, for all those people, all those listeners shopping for used exotic cars, don't discount them, okay? Don't discount them before you try one. Aventador, later Gallardos, later Ferraris. I mean, the best one was the Scuderia 16M. Like, that was unbelievable. Like, that was one that was so good that I don't think you'd want a manual. Even foot flat doing the shifts, it was almost like a dual clutch, and it was really, really smooth. Really smooth. Just when you're cruising. I mean, the other thing is, dual clutch has replaced it, but you still have to drive dual clutch like a manual a bit as well.
Sometimes
they can be a bit clunky at slow speed.
They are
because they have to release a clutch. So,
yeah.
Let me know what you think. Maybe you have a car with this gearbox in it, and you're a die-hard defender of it, or you don't think it's too bad, or maybe you think they're absolutely dreadful and I'm talking nonsense, which is very, very possible.
No, but I think people come here for hard-hitting consumer advice, like if you're going to buy a Lamborghini or a Ferrari from the 2000s, this is where you get it.
That's exactly right. So, single-clutch gearboxes, often not amazing, but I don't think they're as bad as they were made out to be in some cases. But now we're going to move on to classifieds. And this is where Stephen's scared because he doesn't actually know what we're doing here.
Yeah, but peek behind the curtains. We usually discuss a topic and prepare for it. I am unprepared for this, so watch my brain melt down in real time.
So what I found the other day on car sales, and again, we're not sponsored, but maybe one day.
I mean, feel free to sponsor us, car sales.
That's right.
Perfectly open to it.
I found a little, as you can do, you can search for all the cars you want to buy, etc. But you can actually search by the whole listing of car sales, all 200,000 cars or whatever it is, for well below market price.
Oh, okay.
I went, that's interesting. So then I went well below market price, and then I went basically dealer demo, used cars. So I'm thinking this will be interesting to see what's out there, because it might give us some indication as to what's selling and what's not selling. So I have picked my top 10 cars that I found, and I'm going to ask you whether, given the deal that is currently available, these cars are currently on offer, whether you'd buy it or not. Okay.
Assuming I have money, but that's great. Excellent.
I mean, if you were in the market,
if I'm the kind of person thinking about buying a single clutch Lamborghini, or a brand new GT line Kia EV4,
But that's the thing. It'll be unsurprising that most of these cars aren't particularly popular necessarily, but would this discount then sway you to consider it?
Also, we should again preface this by saying I own an Alfa Romeo Alfa Sud, so weird cars are a little bit my thing. But anyway.
Yeah, okay. Well, this will be interesting. So number 10, there's a 2023 Jeep Compass Trailhawk for sale with 13 kilometres on it. So it's a brand new car, and we're getting back to your EV thing of having to clear old stock. So the dealer really wants to get rid of this car. The RRP of this car, when it was still on sale in Australia, was $59,100, okay? 60 grand. It's on offer for $26,990 drive away.
Okay.
So would effectively, less than half price, sway you into a brand new Jeep Compass Trailhawk.
Okay. I'm going to be totally honest with you. You lost me at the word Jeep.
Yeah, okay. Fair enough.
I mean, look, I would say that discount is unsurprising, would be the polite way to put it. I mean, I think, it's just, I mean, that brand is just, it's, we could probably talk about this longer on another episode, but Jeep as a brand is so sad. Like, they should be absolutely thriving in this era of SUVs, and yet they have just all but disappeared. So, no Jeep for me, please. Okay.
But a more probably alluring Jeep was you could get a Rubicon Gladiator, which again isn't a particularly inspiring car, but nothing goes off-road better really, and you can get 40 grand off one of those pretty easy as well.
Look, that's sort of semi-tempting. If you're I'm not buying a Ranger or a Hilux.
Yeah.
kind of person, and you're willing to take a risk if you're like, gambling, sure, go for it.
So, when the new Mitsubishi ASX came out, the Renault-based one, what's the big problem with that car?
Well, I mean, I don't know because I haven't
It's
driven one.
too expensive.
Is
They
it?
used,
I
well,
mean,
they made
well,
it.
it's
They
it's not
sold
s-
lots.
it's not super cheap, yeah, because the previous one was just cheap. Like
Yeah,
that
they
was
sold
its
lots
key
of the old
selling point.
one because it was really dirt cheap, even though it was 1,400 years old.
Yes.
And now they've got this new one, which is apparently, I haven't driven it either, but apparently it's a much better car, as you'd expect, but it's
Yeah.
gone up. But if you look on the interwebs,
Okay.
you'll find that they're not actually any more expensive than the old one.
Really?
So, at number 9, I've got Mitsubishi ASX Aspire. You can buy lots. You can find lots of the LS, which is like the base Bogo one, but the Aspire's the next one up, so you get some niceties. This one's got less than 2,000 k's on the clock. The RRP for this car is 42,690. You can get one for 38,888. Drive away.
I was hoping for a lower number than that.
You've got
Also-
15 grand off.
Also, again, the word I kind of got lost on there was Renault.
Yeah.
That worries me. Look, certainly that's a more appealing prospect, but look, the ASX doesn't do much for me. I think that's an incredibly competitive market, right? Like, and to be honest, I think that the problem with the ASX was always a car that I looked at and thought that is one of those cars that's going to be in real trouble when the Chinese start hitting their
Yeah.
stride, because they are coming in like, yeah, I mean, we were saying 38,990. I mean, say 38,990.
No,
Yeah.
42,690 for the mid-spec one. RRP, and then this one is 30,888. Drive away.
Oh, okay. I mean, 30,000 it's not bad. I would put that on the maybe pile.
Yeah.
Can I be maybe? I'm going to go maybe.
Well, I mean, we're talking about consumer advice for supercars, but this is if you're interested, maybe you've got a current ASX and you don't want the new one because it's way too expensive. Well, you might be able to get one for the same price you're paying as your old one.
30,000. Getting a car for $30,000 these days, like a small SUV, even a small SUV, it's not terrible.
Yeah. Now we're going to go into something a bit more exciting. Now, the Cupra Ateca VZX is a bit of a strange car. It came to Australia and it was a bit of an older Cupra offering, which in a sense is kind of cool. It's still got the older Volkswagen interior with lots of buttons, lots of physical controls. Hasn't gone all haptic. You've got the 2-litre turbo dual clutch all-wheel drive thing that goes in everything, right? Golf R, etc., etc. So it's 60. This one has 700 kilometers on the clock. So again, dealer demo,
Heaps
brand
of
new
miles.
car.
Yep.
And it was 68,990 drive away. This one is 43,990 drive away. That's $25,000 off for a brand new car. Would you have a slightly older Cupra performance SUV for 25 grand off?
Yeah, you know what? That's a tempting proposition. 43, like as we discussed on last week's episode, if you haven't listened, check it out. We're looking at sort of performance cars under $40,000 because there's very few cars at that price point now. I mean, to be blunt, when you look at the prices of these kind of cars, yeah, they're crazy expensive. Like I have a friend who has a Mark 7 Golf R, and it's like, oh, what should I upgrade to? And it's like, I mean, you're going to spend nearly double what you spend on your Golf R to get a new Golf R. Like, I mean, there's nothing at that sort of level. So yeah,
And that's what this thing is. It's basically a Golf. It's basically Golf 7 platform, same engine, same drivetrain, same everything, same interior.
Yeah, I quite like it. Again, I have owned Volkswagens in the past, and they aren't the cheapest things to service and that sort of stuff. So like you'd have to, I'd say, go in with your eyes wide open that it's not going to be a cheap car. But for 43 grand, is it 43? Yeah,
low 43,990 drive away.
43,990 drive away. Like that is pretty sharp in this current day and age, right? You're not going to get. I mean, Honda i30 is more expensive. Like, can't get the Kona in anymore. So like, there's few kind of direct roll, and it's a pretty premium thing. I like the design of it. I
think they're cool.
Yeah, pretty sure I drove it. And I had a lot of people looking at it. Like it's a. I think they've done a nice job, Cupra, as a brand. Like, it's still a very niche proposition, but they've done it, they're leaning into who they are and what they do best.
The next one might be a bit of a surprise in terms of bargains out there. BMW M3 Touring.
Okay.
There's a few actually for sale. So this one's got 1,800 Ks on it, essentially a fraction over. So RRP, as we discussed last week, I think RRP is 188,900. So 190 grand essentially RRP. This one with less than 2,000 Ks on it is 153 grand. There's a really nice colour too, that really deep blue, and there were like 4 available from maybe even the same dealer. White one. So yeah, you can get a M3 Touring if you're happy to have 2,000 Ks on the clock for $35,000 off. Probably more because you're talking options and stuff like that.
I would almost put that in the too good to be true pile. Like that kind of, I would question the dealer. You know, maybe do a little bit of research because I don't fully understand why it would be. You know, that's not a lot of Ks. Like, if someone just flipped it or dealers over order, I don't fully understand because that is a pretty good car.
It's an awesome car.
I haven't driven it, but I've heard nothing but good things, and so yeah, it's just I find it a strange one. So
I mean, the thing is, if you had one, maybe it's kind of weird, but yeah, there are a few dotted around Australia at that price. So
yeah, maybe the expectation of demand didn't meet the reality of demand because, as we've discussed this pod, motoring journalists are naturally wagon fans. They
are selling pretty well, but it might be a case of maybe it's come into a dealer that just wants to get rid of it or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I've certainly seen a few of them on the road, like probably more than I've seen sedans lately. So yeah, I mean, look. Yeah, I have a occupational predisposition to buy a fast wagon. So yeah, I'll definitely get that car.
Okay, we talk a lot on this podcast and in general about there's no more cheap cars, no more cheap small cars yet left. You know, Yaris is gone. You know, Suzuki Swift's kind of the only one left. But a really good small car is a Volkswagen Polo. But again, they're just really expensive these days. But I found one, Volkswagen Polo 85 TFSI Life, which is the base model. RRP $31,000. This one has 1,500 Ks on the clock. 27 drive away. 27 drive away for effectively a brand new Polo.
Yeah, I mean, that's, again, eyes wide open. It's a Volkswagen. It will cost you a little bit more to service and maintain and that sort of thing, but you will be... the flip side of it is you get a very solid car. You know, like a dependable car. And look... This is not to criticize newer brands, like the particular Chinese brands that are selling those cars at that price. But, you know, we don't know what they're going to be like. I mean, I remember a friend of mine asked me a few years ago, should I buy a BYD when they were brand new to the country? And I said, look, all I've heard is good things, that they drive the Atto 3 at that point. It drives quite well, blah, blah, blah. It'll be, you know, but I don't know what it's going to be like in 5 years. Well, 5 years down the track, you know, again... Listeners can hit us up if this is wildly inaccurate, but I think they've done a pretty good job. You don't hear horror stories about BYD. No. So, but I mean, as the cars get cheaper, you know, you got to think you're saving money somewhere. So look, 27. I know for a Polo, you know, yeah, it's certainly a tempting proposition. You know,
it's one of those things like, as we get older, it kind of feels like the right price for that car. You're like, oh yeah, a Polo, 27 drive away. Yeah, sounds about right.
Maybe dating myself, but it does feel... I feel like I should be getting a Polo GTI for that price, but, you know...
Well, I mean, that's the other thing. I still remember, I'm going to choose for the day I die, when they were doing run-out 7.5 Golfs for 22 drive away. The idea of getting a Golf for 22 grand drive away now, it's so alien.
Yeah, I mean...
listeners, like...
I bought a Golf, like base Golf, and I'm pretty sure in the... It was a... Mark 5, and it was like low 20s. Like it was, you know, cost me a
All right, we'll keep it going.
Service. Yep.
Renault Duster.
Oh, okay.
Have you driven one?
I have not driven one, actually. That's a car I need to get into sooner rather than later.
I've driven the 4x4 manual, and I really liked it, but I understand that's a very, very niche offering, right? You know, some people want a 4x4 manual. The smarter choice is the 4x2, which obviously isn't as rugged, but it gets a better engine, gets more power, it's more fuel efficient. And regularly it's 36,990 RRP for the Upspec Techno, which has all the bells and whistles, right? It's the flagship variant. This one has 20 kilometres on it. So I'm afraid it does have a few kilometres on it,
Yeah.
20 Ks.
Yeah, 20.
But instead of 37...
Sounds like you've been driving it.
Yeah, instead of 37 RRP, this one is 3998 drive away. So would effectively a 10 grand price cut tempt you into a Renault Duster? Or a Dacia Duster. You could put Dacia badges back on it.
Yes, that's what I do. That's exactly what I do. As soon as you said I would buy it, and I would do what blokes in Commodores used to do, and I'd pop off the Commodore badge and put on a Holden badge and put a Chevy badge on. I'd do the exact same here. Renault badge, gone. Dacia back on the front.
Yep.
Yeah, look, I haven't... Yeah, to be transparent to readers, I haven't driven the car, but again, I've talked to colleagues. It's had good feedback. Dacia is a brand. Look, I totally understand why the importers here have called it a Renault and not a Dacia. It's a whole other brand to launch. It doesn't make sense. But that brand has a reputation for kind of building pretty solid, affordable, but kind of interesting cars in Europe. Like, so, yeah,
it has
I would definitely...
30,000 kilometre service intervals. I mean, you should never do that with a car. Service your car much more often than that. But
annually, yes.
There's a certain confidence that goes with that, with a brand offering 30,000 kilometre service intervals.
Look, yes, we joked earlier about it being the ASX being a Renault. Like, yes, the European cars, again, like same with Volkswagen, expect to pay a little bit more with servicing, like if parts and those sorts of things. But yeah, that would be a tempting proposition for sure.
Having driven the Duster, basically, it's the anti-fashion car. You get in it and everything's kind of still. There's lots of switches. It's quite simple. So if you're someone that looks at a lot of modern cars and goes, oh, there's so much tech in them, I don't really like it. This has still got wireless smartphone mirroring and all that sort of stuff. The stuff you want. But it's a really unannoying car. So for 30 grand drive away, it's quite spacious too. We've talked about this car before, but a Nissan Z Nismo, RRP, 95 grand, okay? It's essentially a $100,000 car, basically. This is a white one, look quite good. This has 3,000 Ks on it, 75 grand.
That is not bad. That is not bad at all. For a Nismo, especially for a Nismo.
It's not the base one, it's the actual Nissan Z Nismo. 3,000 Ks, effective 20 grand off.
Yeah, I mean, look, what's a V8 Mustang? 85 or something. You know? So, like, I mean, again, I think we've talked about it on the pod, it is a little bit... Grandpa's axe, the Z in general. It's an older chassis. It goes back a few generations, all that sort of stuff. But it is still a rear-wheel drive coupe. I really like that turbocharged V6. When they,
it's got a heap of grunt now.
Yeah, like it could always do with more grunt, and they finally gave it some. And then the Nismo again elevates it again. So, yeah, put me down for that.
This is a good one. Next one. I'll fly through the last ones. Again, a possibly surprising one. A BMW X5 X-Drive 30D M Sport. The one everyone buys, right? It's the mid-spec diesel with the M Sport kit on it.
Is it legal for BMW to sell a car now without an M Sport pack?
I think it is legal, but very much frowned upon.
Yeah. It's not the done thing.
You need those M badges. So RRP 140 grand plus some options and blah 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 blah. So you're probably looking at 150k or so. This one has 7,000 Ks on it, so it's got a few Ks, but it's 100 grand drive away.
Right.
It's dropped 50 grand plus in 7,000 Ks.
Look. It
hasn't finished depreciating, I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you're looking for a quick flip to make some money, no, do not buy this. But if you're looking for a luxury family car, SUV, like you say, that's the one to pick.
Yeah.
Why would you... this is the thing. For 7,000 Ks, look, no, you're not getting a brand new... Someone else has worn those shoes before, but you're saving, nearly a third of the price. Like, if you are looking at a BMW X5, 30D right now, and you don't buy this car, what are you doing? You must really hate what colour was it?
White.
White, okay. Maybe,
it wasn't
unless you really hate white, But
the thing, it wasn't like green or anything like that. It was just your dead normal spec. So I think.
Maybe diesel's a bit on the nose these days, but yeah. I don't know. Still seems like if you are looking for a car like that,
Queensland, so maybe because it wasn't a Silverado, Queensland buyers don't want it.
Hi, Queensland viewers.
Hello. Endearing myself.
We appreciate you.
The next one I really love, because I went on the international launch of this car and I really liked it. The Mercedes AMG A35.
Oh,
And
yeah.
at the time, it was a really good package for the money. But then Mercedes just went absolutely nuts with the price. Like that, when I did that launch, I think when it came to Australia, it was 67,200 RRP or something like that. It
Which
is
seems
now
crazy cheap now.
I know. Well, now it's 86,200 for that car.
Far out.
But if you're happy to have 2,000 Ks on it and go to Tasmania to get it, you can get one for 75 grand drive away. Which is about back to where it was, you know. It's about back to the new price when it came out.
This is 63 to 75. It's a bit
No, 67 was
67.
when it came out, RRP, and now it's 75 drive away.
Yeah. Yes. I don't know. Do I want an A35 or a Nismo, basically, is what you just asked me. Nismo's
Well, there's that, yeah.
You know, I liked the A35. I didn't love the A35.
That's
I
fair.
think it would... I think it's a lot of money for that size of car and that sort of performance. Like, I think you can probably get more bang for your buck shopping around. Hence, as you've done, you found a Nismo. So, like, yeah.
Okay. Well, the last one, Land Rover Defender Octa.
Oh, okay.
This is an edition 1. So you get some specky things, you get some carbon bits and whatnot. This one has 3,300 Ks on it, so a little bit of use, but not much. And there were other variants that weren't edition ones.
3,000 Ks Land Rover, so it's probably had 3 or 4 services. Wow.
Oh, that's
zing! So, joking Land Rover, folks, just joking.
Yeah,
Again,
just
I own an Alfa Romeo Alpha from the 80s, so...
So the RRP on the Defender Octa Edition 1 was $325,532. Okay. This one, with 3,300 Ks on it, is $223,210. So you've got a cheeky $103,000 discount in 3,000 Ks.
That is quite the depreciation.
Is that tempting enough to get you into an Octa?
Again, I haven't driven that car. You've driven it. You've raved about it.
It's a really cool thing.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. On paper, fantastic. And yeah, I'd certainly love to pay $100,000 less for it. Again, though, I'd buy it for both a good time and a long time, because that is going to keep depreciating like a rock, I'd imagine. Like, that is... I mean, the thing is, it's incredibly niche, right? It's a super niche proposition. So, Look, maybe it'll cap at some point, because they'll be rare. They'll be an incredibly rare bird to find. So yeah, maybe. I mean, look, certainly appealing. I'd certainly like to pay $100,000.
I did speak to someone who was using it as a tow car, and he kind of wished he'd bought the regular one.
With
so maybe, in this case, maybe it's a similar. Obviously, 3,000 Ks on the clock. Maybe someone's had it, gone. You know what?
Wrong use case, maybe.
Yeah, wrong use case, and it's gone back. But yeah, 100 grand in 3,000 Ks ain't great. But let us know if you found any bargains in the comments, and we'll talk about them next week. But now let's move on to motorsport. And the big news over the weekend was Nurburgring 24 Hour. We did the preview last week. What did you think?
The 2026 Nurburgring 24 Hours, or as it is now known, the Max Verstappen show. Look, it was awesome. Like that, yeah. Look, that was
such a crazy race.
That was a sassy quip, but I love the fact that Max did the race. I thought he brought so many more eyeballs to it. It is such a weird, niche kind of race. Like I say, it's sort of the Bathurst of Germany. And yeah, it was a fantastic race. You know, like the whole point of it is, it's so long, it's so challenging around that track. And
Verstappen was on, for those who didn't see it, Verstappen was on for the fairy tale.
He looked like shockingly, Max Verstappen looked really fast and capable in a race car, which is...
Although he almost binned it on his first lap.
He did almost bin it. I mean, he almost bin it because he ran a little wide, got air underneath the front of the car and couldn't turn. I mean, just the race itself, it was crazy that's a thing. Look, he banged the guardrail, his co-drivers also had a few dings. Was there, eventually the drive shaft broke, and that's what put him out of contention when they did have a comfortable lead over the sister car that ended up winning. So look, he certainly, I'm in 0% surprised that Max Verstappen looked really fast around the Nurburgring. I mean, again, it helped he had absolute gun lineup of co-drivers. The team was clearly, very good. But in the end, it's a bit like they say, Bathurst chooses you when you win the 1,000. Well,
Yeah.
I think Nurburgring kind of chooses it, and they chose, worthy winners. That they chose some real sports car veterans and aces, Mauro Engel and Maxime Martin, who won the Bathurst 12 Hour this year. Mauro, who actually raced supercars out here for a while. Lucas Stoltz and Fabian Schiller. Fantastic lineup of sports cars. And that's the thing. Hopefully, look, for all the hype around Max, hopefully some people understand, look, he's arguably the best driver in the world. He's probably one of the best, most talented race car drivers ever in the history of the sport. And yeah, he took to it like a duck to water, but it wasn't like he disappeared every single time. Like, it wasn't like he's 10 seconds a lap faster than everyone else. Like, he was competitive, like you'd expect him to be. So, but it's an absolutely stacked lineup of drivers. Like, it's a incredibly competitive race. Mercedes, BMW, Porsche, they all throw Lamborghini. They all throw their full resources at it. And
if you haven't watched this race, go on and watch the live stream. I watched about the first 90 minutes, and that's it's all hectic, but that's all especially hectic because the cars are grouped and the GT3s catch the slower cars in basically on their second lap, and just the names and the quality of the field and the driving is just off the chart. Like, I'm just looking at the results now, but you got like Lawrence Van Thor, you've got Christopher Mies, you've got Mauro Engel, you've got Max Verstappen, you've got Danny Juncadella, you've got Marco Mappelli, Kevin Estra. Every car
stacked.
Has a complete lunatic behind the wheel, and they're driving the wheels off it. And once Verstappen was out, I was all on the train, but it ended up fifth. Was the M3 Touring? M3 Touring got fifth outright, and it's so cool that car finished and performed really well.
For starters, this is the great thing about this race. It's great that car's in it.
Yeah.
Because again, it's GT3. It's a BOP formula. Manufacturers, they're always angling to get their car to be more competitive. Blah blah blah. BMW went out and said, "Hey, we're going to build a wagon version of our M4 GT3 car." And they allowed it in. I don't know what the deals were behind the scenes and how they balanced it all, but it was obviously a genuinely competitive car.
Yeah,
this has gone from April Fool's Day joke to top 5 position. I was absolutely like dreaming the whole race. I'm like, please, I'd love to see that car finish on the podium. It would have been amazing.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
But again, this is the beauty of this race. Is I was watching, I was like, man. The BMW wagon's behind the Lamborghini, which is like, when do you say that in any other race?
And the good thing about it is they've actually probably, whatever the BOP on that car was, it's perfect, right? It performed well, it was competitive, it was good, it ended up fifth, but you probably wouldn't want the prototype winning because, it is still a serious race for the proper race cars. So, it was fantastic. So, I'm sure Max will be back next year. F1
hopefully,
permitting. So and maybe we'll talk about the best guest drives in another episode.
Yes, for sure. I mean, I think the F1 organisers would be well placed to make sure that their calendar does not clash with the Nurburgring 24 hours and the Le Mans 24 hours.
Yes, chances
of
that happening. 0.
Hopefully. Caring. Yes, caring definitely.
Yeah.
Hopefully maybe even the Bathurst 12 hour, maybe keep that one free, Max. I mean,
that'd be good. All right, let's wrap it up with we're going to talk about SVG. Let's talk about SVG on another podcast, and because we'll give some love to the Indy 500, which is next week. And
the subject of my hat for this week.
I do like IndyCar. I need to watch more of it, but I don't know a lot about the 500. I think they had qualifying this morning or yesterday.
Recently, yes. Qualifying was this morning as we record this.
Yeah, as we record this, we're recording a bit early this week. So run us through the runners and riders, what the go is, Stephen.
Yes, well, as you can tell, if those viewing us, I am wearing my Indianapolis Motor Speedway hat, which I purchased when I went to the race a couple of years ago. I've been to a lot of, not to brag, I've been to a lot of car races in my time. The Indy 500, might be the best race I've ever been to.
Really?
It is,
But they just turn left all the time, Steve.
Exactly. At, 230 miles an hour, basically. They are running at, 300 plus Ks an hour for 3 hours.
I saw
zero margin for error.
McLaughlin's onboard And he was turning in at 239 miles an hour, which I think was 385. That's quite fast.
Yeah, it's a little rapid. I mean, it's
does it look that fast when you're there?
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually what I was wondering before I went, is like, are they actually going to look that fast?
Because it's such a massive stadium, right? And it can shrink, it can take away the spectacle, but...
That's part of it, right? That's part of, like, what makes the great races great, right, is the scale of them. Indianapolis, the venue is huge. Le Mans, the grandstands are massive. I mean, it's a huge... and the track itself is enormous. Nurburgring is the same thing. Enormous racetrack. You know, it has fairly regular-sized... paddock and all. Well, it has a big sort of entertainment precinct. But anyway, they have something about them that makes them feel special. And Indy is like that. It's just like the year I went. I was told, look, you got to get in early before the rush. I was there before dawn, and so I was there I was in the media center, I think, before 6 a.m. and the race doesn't start until 2, I think 2:30, and I've never had a day go by quicker. Like, it's just, there's so much. I mean, the Americans love pomp and ceremony and waving flags and singing songs, but you can get on, I had a media pass. I was getting on the grid.
There's a lot of freedom there that day.
Have a lot of, yes, they have, but they also have a lot of freedom in terms of, you can get on the grid. You can, it's, again, it's beneficial. I love it. I've always loved IndyCar racing since they went to the Gold Coast in 91. I watched it for the first time. I was hooked immediately. It's such a cool category. I love the diversity of road courses, street courses, short ovals, big ovals, all that sort of stuff. I think it is an incredibly challenging kind of championship. I mean, you talk about, you're just turning left, it's easy. The fact that Max Verstappen says, I don't want to do that, right? Because he knows how dangerous it is. It is like running on a high wire. Right, you strap it across 2 buildings and you run across. You go, you're just walking on a high wire, like you do maybe on a.
Yeah.
But there's a difference between walking on a high wire, 1 foot off the ground, and across 2 skyscrapers. And that's what they're doing, is they are running.
There ain't no small crashes at Indy.
No, I mean it's a, and that's the thing, right? Like, it's such a challenging race. It's 500 miles. The great Rick Mears, who I actually did get to meet when I was there, thanks to. I've known Will Power, who's the 2018 winner. Known him for a very long time through work. And so to go there and see it, like they say, Rick Mears won it 4 times, a little bit like the Peter Brock of Indy 500. He says qualifying doesn't finish till the 400-mile mark, right? Like, you're still setting your... Because the track temperature, wind direction, all that stuff, how much traffic there is, all those things, they all factor into how the car handles, right? Because, again, you are on such a narrow, fine edge. You're constantly tuning the car throughout the day, right? You're setting yourself up. It was like we'd say at Bathurst 1000, you're just getting yourself to that last pit stop, right? And that's what Indy 500 is like. You're getting yourself, you're buying a ticket to get into that race at the end, and that's what makes it amazing. And everyone wants to win it, no one wants to come second. There's no point coming. I mean, yes, you get points. Literally, you do get points for the championship. But it's that thing of I'd rather bin it and not finish than just sit here and bag points, right? If you are within a shot of winning that race, you are going for it. And what I love about it is that more often than not, that's what happens towards the end. It's a thrilling finish. Very rarely does someone go off and dominate and finish half a lap ahead of everyone else, right? It's always a good race. It typically is one of the best motor races I watch every year. And I watch
partially
a lot of car races.
Because, inherently, because of the speed and the way the things are set up, if you're in front, you are at a disadvantage because, you're pushing the air out of the way at 390 k's an hour. So, therefore, the people behind you are always going to have an inherent advantage, which means the pack comes together as well as the safety cars. And equally, like you say, the margins are so small that... N24, right? You go and do a lap and you might be 2 seconds off. Like this, if you're probably 2/10 off, you're nowhere.
Yeah.
Because the lap's so short, you do so many laps. If you're 2/10 off a lap, you're going to be 60 laps behind at the end.
Yeah. I mean, this is the thing, I talked to, I've been lucky to, talk to Will as he's raced there. He's a multiple champion there. He's got the most pole positions. He's an incredibly fast driver. He'll say to me, dude, this series is so competitive. You just can't afford to be off by anything, right? Because it's, we talk about F1, and F1 is the pinnacle, and it's, everyone's going to have their own cars and all that sort of stuff. IndyCar, it's the same chassis for everyone, that you can have a choice of engine, and the engines are pretty similar, and you get a choice, and everyone's running the same tire. So it's like it does come down to the driver and the team. Again, that's part of what I love about it. Is it it ends up being, the man driving it, the team behind them. That's what ultimately determines the result. It's not you've got the best car and therefore you're going to clean everyone's clocks. Like there is subtle differences between the cars. But they put on a heck of a show every time they go out. So if you're sort of the person who just watches F1, I would highly encourage you to go and watch, like Scott said, go and watch the Nurburgring 24 live stream or the highlights. Go and watch Indy 500. It's an absolutely amazing race.
So who's the hot money on for this year's race? Was it last year or year before that Scotty Mack sadly spun on the opening lap?
That was one of the formation laps, because they have multiple formation laps. Which is no good. Look, having said that no one really dominates the sport, Alex Palou, Spanish driver, racing for Chip Ganassi, he has been as close to a dominant force in IndyCar for the last couple of years. Multiple championships. He won the Indy 500 last year. He's just qualified on pole position. It's going to be, he's clearly the person to beat, right? He's the guy to beat, right? But you've got guys like David Malukas. He's a young guy. He got basically promoted to Will's seat at Team Penske. Will's move over to Andretti Global, which is, Michael Andretti's not hugely involved anymore. This is basically the same guy that owns the Cadillac F1 team, so there's a fair bit of money behind it. They haven't looked that great, to be honest. Will's qualified 20th. His teammates are 18th and 26th. 26th, that's his teammate Kyle Kirkwood, who has been challenging Palou pretty consistently throughout the championship so far this year. So that sort of shows you how competitive it is, right? Kirkwood has been one of the form drivers, top 2 drivers of the year, and he's 26th out of 33 starters. So look, honestly, it's one. I look down the list. You've got guys, Alex Rossi, who's starting second, XF1. He's a former winner. Pato O'Ward, who's been really quick for McLaren the last few years. He's starting 6th. Where they start is almost irrelevant. But there's guys like, Scotty Max 9th, Scott Dixon, Kiwi legend, Sir Scott Dixon, I believe. He's going to roll off 11th. Takuma Sato, people remember him from his F1 days. He's a 2-time winner of this race. He comes back every year to win it to try and win it because he is really good. Helio Castro Neves, a Brazilian veteran, he's trying to win it for a record 5th time. He's the only guy. Rick Mears has won it 4 times. AJ Foyt's won it 4 times. They are legends of American motorsport, and Helio Castro Neves has also won the Indy 500 4 times, and so he's going for it again. But it's an incredible grid, and then you've got a young Mick Schumacher. He's going to roll off 28th, and he will, so that'll be. I'm sure this will be an enormous learning experience for him. But it's an amazing race. Listen, again, just looking at the grid, Joseph Newgarden, again, another multiple winner of the event. He won the year I was there in 2024. He's starting 24th, but again, I would not rule him out by any stretch. And I do want to give a shout out, though. One person I want to give a shout out especially to is Catherine Legg.
I was just about to say that.
She's the only woman in the race, but not only is she going to be the only woman in the race, she's actually going to do what they call in America the double, because if you've got something nice, if IndyCar has something nice, NASCAR's got to try and have something nicer. The Indy 500 is obviously, it's run on Memorial Day in America, which is sort of, I guess, the equivalent of their Anzac Day. It's obviously a big holiday. So that's traditionally when it's been run. And so NASCAR many years ago decided they needed a showpiece event on Memorial Day weekend. And so what's better than a 500-mile race? 600-mile race. So they have their big signature 600-mile race at Charlotte, and they run it at 9. And so if you can get your hands on a helicopter and a jet, what you can typically do is finish the Indy 500, jump in the chopper, straight to the airport, airport
cool.
to Charlotte, jump in a chopper, land at Charlotte Motor Speedway, jump into NASCAR, and that's what Catherine Legg's going to try and do this year. Previous people who have done it, Kyle Larson, who's NASCAR champion, he's tried to do it the last couple of years. Tony Stewart.
Yeah, I think a few people have done it the other way, but not many IndyCar people have done the NASCAR, predominantly IndyCar. Going to NASCAR. I mean, even it's like she's going to be wrecked by the end of the day.
I mean, yeah, the physical toll would be maybe 1,100 miles. I mean, I'm trying to think. I think it's Tony Stewart's the only guy to actually
finish. Yeah,
do 1,100 miles. I might be mistaken on that. I'd have to check. But yeah, I mean, it's a mega effort. Literally, if you can make the finish of both races, that's an incredible achievement. And particularly, she's racing part time in both series, so certainly no expectation that she's going to win either race, but to attempt both, I think, is just one of the ultimate motorsport achievements, and it's going to be awesome if she does it. So yeah, I'll be following her and cheering her on as best I can.
Well, we'll see what happens and unpack what happens next week. Thank you for listening. Any questions, as always, hit us up at Steve Drives Cars on Instagram for Stephen Oddly and at Addicted to Sliding for me. We will see you next week for more car chat.
Bye.